Live. Thank you very much. Anybody who's arrived a little early, will be live very shortly. Just a couple more seconds. We're just waiting for it to boot up and say we're live. I think we're coming to it now. Live. Thank you very much. There we are. Perfect. Amazing. Very nearly 7 o'clock. It's just turned 7 o'clock. So thank you very much for everybody who's here nice and early for our episode 62 of the Empower Hour show. It's actually quite unbelievable that this is going for 62 consecutive, in essence, weeks. It's just wonderful. I think I'm very, very grateful for salamradio.co.uk from Peterborough, who are actually our sponsors, and also this show goes out to and dedicates to as well. This evening we have another coveted guest, and I think you can see him there. He's right in front of me, I'm very certain. But I'm just saying, you are in for a brilliant treat, as am I. You know, we have such a grateful rapport with both Chaz Fliy as an independent individual, as a creative, as an individual who's changed his world and many people's around his own as well. Has been through adversity, but also has created a brand for himself, a clear identity that people can follow and aspire to. Globally seen face in the Singh Project. He's been a creative director in the country. He's in GQ magazine, spoken at Apple. He's spoken at so many high coveted, high level events. Without taking too much of your time, I'm going to get straight to it. Chaz, welcome this evening on episode 62 of the Empower Hour show.
Thank you, Suki. Congratulations for episode 62, and thanks for having me on. I've been long awaiting my invite, and I'm finally here. So I'm really grateful that you've got me on the show. Thank you so much.
Honestly, Chaz, the pleasure is ours. It's really, really wonderful having you on here. You're truly inspirational. We work together on a couple of projects as well. But ironically, because of the importance and the flow of the Empower Hour show, we are booked months ahead now. We're looking into January already, 2021. I can't even see beyond COVID at the moment. Amazing. So without wasting too much time, this is an event, or this is a program that we actually go very close and dear with every one of our guests. You're used to giving lots and lots of interviews commercially, but this is something very different. This is for the Inspired Tribe. That we have people around all over the world through Salam Radio and ourselves, where we hit so many areas, so many countries across the globe, as far as basically the whole of the Africas, East Africa, Kenya, Tanzania, and all the way into Australia. And then on the other side, completely the other way around, right through into South Americas and North Americas as well. So we're truly, truly proud and very humbled to have everybody listening in today. Chaz, you're a very coveted individual. You've been involved in such high profile jobs, but also placements as well. But a lot of individuals don't actually know so much about your personal real life. We get close with you. So a little question, I know you're a yogi and all those sort of things. We'll touch that a little later, but I'd like to just ask you a simple question. Where are you from?
So I am from the UK, London, and I live in Northwest London in a town called Harrow.
Wow. Now I'm going to let the secrets out, I'm afraid. We're going to let this to all of the audience and the listeners tonight know that actually you are the younger brother of one of my guests called Ravinder Plahe, and you're the husband of Manita Plahe. In case you haven't worked it out, your name is Charan Singh Plahe as well. So what a family affair, a sincere, humble gratitude to the whole of the Plahe family, who have actually been so coveted and who have delivered so much change on this planet. So well done to all of you. So you're from Harrow. I've had the good fortune of meeting both your parents. Besides the humility and love that they exude, both of them, what was it like, living in Harrow, growing up in essence in school? What was it like?
Growing up in Harrow, I think I lived a very normal life. Growing up as a kid, I had a big family, played sports. I have a family, who have an obsession with music. So that was a very big part of our culture of growing up. And growing up in school, in the school that I was, it wasn't that it was a predominantly kind of a certain kind of, like, I can't say I went to a school where I was the only Indian kid, for example.
Mm.
And it was a quite multicultural affair growing up. And streets in Harrow, 30 years ago were amazing, like it was joyous. But I think that might just be being a kid. You see everything through a very innocent lens, and you're always happy.
You're with music as a whole, and I can see in the background there, you've got a great backdrop with a nice set of earphones and your sound system and your speakers running in the background. Obviously, you're a very competent individual when it comes to creativity, but how do you feel music? Obviously, you're a Sikh, you're a Punjabi-speaking individual. So, what was music like for you as a child when you were growing up? You said it was very influential. What sort of music did you listen to? What was it like?
Music was across the board, to be honest, because if we kind of jump the story slightly, most of my life has revolved around being a DJ, flying internationally and being in clubs and setting up nights and all that. So, I mean, that's a big chunk of my life, being a DJ. But I think a lot of it was inspired from, family members, my brother, my cousins, my uncles, who listened to a range of music. And, I'm probably not the only person in my generation, especially, who wasn't probably the biggest fan of Michael Jackson, and Bob Marley at the time. And, these are the kind of influences, as well as your Punjabi music, your Alap, your Hiras.
Yes, absolutely. If anybody who doesn't know what that is, they are, I would say very strongly that they were legends of the Bhangra scene, 70s, 80s, 90s. They were very, very well received as well, Mahira and Alap. So if I go back to school a second, if you don't mind, I mean, we obviously know you're one of, I think, 3 children, and obviously you've got a beautiful wife as well, which is 4 in your immediate family. You're, if I'm correct, the youngest?
I am the youngest, yeah.
You're the youngest. So what was it like having, you could say, having 2 older siblings? Was there any rivalry, or was it just plain sailing?
When I look back, it was plain sailing. I think you gravitate to people who probably share certain interests, where maybe my brother was massively influential in my music upbringing. And then my relationship with my sister was she was very nurturing of me, and we were like best buddies, and we still are. But I think that we just had different relationships, and probably my brother being so much older, not so much older, I mean, the eldest, that gap, I think when you're growing up, that relationship isn't as strong because of the interests and what you're going through at certain times are completely different. So, me and my sister have a very strong relationship, but then at the same time, both have been very influential and been pivotal in my life.
Brilliant. And your sister, obviously, she's also core power as well, right? So she's also an core energy. She's also an Insta star, isn't she?
She is.
Yeah, very much so. Okay, so in school, if I could ask you a few questions, I mean, Harrow, it's definitely not necessarily just a Caucasian environment, as in white dominancy, etc. It was very much mixed, I think, through the 80s, 90s when you grew up, etc., 70s, 90s. So how was it for you in school? I mean, was it, a lot of individuals said that even though they were amongst, let's say, people of color, it wasn't necessarily still as cohesive as we assume as individuals.
I mean, you're absolutely right there. I mean, the way I make out my life, when I look back, I think maybe I filter out only the best parts. But, when I look at my life only now as an adult, and as I've gone through certain processes of letting go and forgiving and, and looking back at my life, I do remember certain parts which molded me at the same time. And, when I think about them occasions, it was the bullying aspect of being at school. And it wasn't necessarily being bullied because I was slim or, I was brown. It is more to do with my actual identity of wearing a turban. So, this was probably the biggest challenge I had going through high school in particular. I wouldn't say first school or middle school, but mainly in high school, where you're finding yourself as a young adult, and really trying to fit in.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So I didn't realize, sorry, about the bullying side of things. So thank you for being so open and sharing with everybody here. This is the real deal. And the Empower Hour show, we get really close with all of our guests. If anybody out there is experiencing bullying at any kind, at any level, it's not okay. I just want you to know that you should immediately seek help. Now, if you've been to school, tell your parents, and if you haven't, spend time and go to your school. And I mean, seriously, pass your school teacher. If there's not anything being done, go straight to the head teacher and basically escalate it. It's not okay to be on your own, and it's not okay to be bullied. Bullies themselves have their own challenges that they're going through. And so us as individuals, thank you, Chaz, for sharing your journey as well. If you don't mind, just to help our audience a little bit, if it's okay, would you just share a little bit of the kind of bullying? I mean, as you said, it wasn't because you were slim. It was probably due to your visual experience. Of what could you share some actual experiences?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was on several occasions where I remember the most. I mean, you know, if I take away any kind of slurs you might have got on the street, everything happened in the school, in the playground. And it was always with the individual who was the class comedian or someone, you know, trying to get their attention. You know, one instance, we're in the playground and you're playing football over lunch, and it becomes a game of who can pull your turban off. And guess what? It comes off, you know.
Wow.
Yep. And another incident might be in the P, you know, when you're getting ready for PE and you're about to go out, it becomes another game of, you know, let's pull his turban off while no one's around, and let's you know, let's see how humiliated someone can be. And you know, and I think the third instance that, you know, probably just really sticks with me when I actually think about bullying, and you know, actually how upsetting, you know, I could have probably felt, actually probably the most upset I felt in that situation was when actually being in a science class, and the kid, you know, again, class comedian comes and attacks you and pulls off your turban without any kind of motive, and you're sat there,
unbelievable,
turban in your hands, you know, hair out. And
sorry to interrupt there, but that's really, really important to understand that it's not okay, and you're being quite jovial about it. That sort of shows you've done an awful lot of work around this, and this is proof that we can get beyond bullying and the feelings it leaves you with. So we're going to touch that a bit later in the second half, just to go a bit more detail into kind of the stuff you bring to this world, and that you've used upon yourself as well, because you're a master, or shall I say, you're an advocate of leading by changing self. I remember that from our previous conversation, Chaz. But just for people who don't understand, underneath the turban, we have long hair as Sikhs, so we call it gis, and in essence, if you pull off the turban with any kind of vigor, it tends to open your hair out. So I assume that's what happened.
Absolutely, yeah. I think
and any intervention with the teacher, I think.
And I think this is the part that probably shocked me more than the whole incident, you know, at the time, was that the teacher, also actually of Indian ethnicity, just stood back and allowed the whole, didn't allow it, but acknowledged it, but didn't say anything, like it didn't happen. So, you know, where there should be an intervention, there was no intervention. It was just like, let's zip
pretend it didn't happen,
carry on and pretend like it didn't happen. Yeah.
So that kind of narrative is obviously not acceptable. You, as a tremendously tough character, obviously must have carried that forward, and I really am feeling that, because as a Sikh child myself, I actually didn't face in Peterborough, because I'm a born and bred Peterborough person. I didn't actually face any racial contention per se, and things like pulling turbans off, etc. So, and that does not mean it did not happen. It just did not happen to me. And so I'm really feeling this kind of a connection as a whole. So thank you so much for being so honest and open with this. Can I just take this a little bit further into this? So in hindsight, was looking, because you mentioned earlier that they defined you, this kind of an activity, the bullies actually defined you as an individual. At that time when the bullying is actually happening, was it as clean cut to realize that this is going to help me, and this is a positive thing that I'm going to take in the future, or it's going to add to my character? I mean, what was your view on that?
The thing is when it's happening to you, you don't have the clarity. I had no idea it was actually happening. So yes, it's a hindsight moment. I look back, as I said, look, I'm in my 30s now, and I look back now, I kind of blocked it all out for my 20s and even my later teens, and it's only now I look back and say, hey, actually this happened, and maybe that wasn't right. You know, at the time, you know, it's not right, but you look back and you're like, wow, actually that was bullying, because up until then I didn't even talk about bullying. I didn't even connect with the whole, these bullying campaigns or anything, because I kind of didn't even think about that. It was happening to me all through my life. And again, yeah, it was hindsight. But then when I look at it, it was because of that, it made me who I am. And in a weird way, I'm grateful for it, because it kind of molded me, and it made me stronger and made me more confident in myself. And not to say, obviously, if you get bullied, that happens to you, but it happened to me because I was able to work through it and realize that, I need that strength. I need to let go. The issue isn't me, the issue is them. So, I went through certain tools, and I've had to kind of let go and carry on, but still acknowledge that, these things still happen today, and it happened to me, and it's not okay. Yeah.
That's so well said. Thank you very much for that. If it's okay, a bit later, Chaz, maybe in the second half of the interview, I can just touch on a few of those tools that you may have used on yourself, if that's okay. But before we go into that sort of phase, might be good just to grab some water. That'd be a really good thing if you've got it there. One of the key things I would ask you is that, we talk in this particular Empower about what we call it, a defining moment in your life. Now, I can appreciate that conversation we just had, the journey and the teacher not paying attention, and actually looking back at it as hindsight to realize that there was a future, meaning it gets better in life, as you move through life. You worked upon yourself, and that was the gift that you had within yourself that God blessed you with. But was there another was that the significant defining moment that you felt that really changed the way and the trajectory of life? Because you're an individual who's very achieved. As I said, you put that behind yourself, and you've been a creative director for a large organization, and pivotal in the decision making and growth of that company and income. Was there any significant moment that you can think of that switched you on and made you much more present in the now? Sometimes we call this the light switch moment. Something switches the light on and somebody's home, and you start to realize that life is not just a blur. There is some kind of sustenance and substance to it as well, and a mission and a purpose. So anything of that sort of nature, Chaz?
Absolutely. I think I've been asked this question before, and I've always tried to find that one moment. And fortunately or unfortunately, I've had many of them. I've had little ones that have triggered something in my thinking about life as a whole, life as bigger, who am I, and the bigger questions in life. But there was one just when I was in my later 20s, where it really all came together, because I am, as you mentioned, Suki, I am a meditation teacher and yoga teacher, and a lot of my life I've been surrounded by very interesting people, very spiritual people, and very gifted, to be honest. And they've always guided me. They've always told me things, or I've been taught in certain practices as well. And when like I was going through my teacher training in some of these courses, my yearning and my wanting to understand how it's practical in my life, how do I use these tools in my life, really came together when actually I had an accident playing squash. It was a rookie mistake, first time on the court, and it was actually my cousin. He slammed a squash ball to hit against the wall to bounce back. But I made the mistake of just looking back as he served, and as he served, that squash ball is the size of your eyeball, and the only thing that can go through the socket, and it went straight into my left eye. And in that instance, I thought I was blind. But before that, where I knew I had actually taken anything that I'd learned from all these kind of spiritual practices, or my own self and my own, my spiritual being of me, to understand, I heard my thought, and my first thought wasn't that I've lost an eye. My first thought when I was hit with the ball in my eye was that I was just lucky to have a second eye. So when I heard myself say that, when I heard myself say that, I realized that actually that's what's important. That's what all these teachings are about. That's what self-development is. And then obviously I had that thought about, oh my God, I've lost my eye.
So wow, just to clarify something, just in the audience thinking, so hang on, you've turned around and you've been hit straight in the eye with a squash ball, which it's very hard, it's impenetrable in the sense of it's very high tensile. It went straight into the eye, and that's the other thing, as you said, goes into the socket. That must have been excruciating pain. That's for a start, but at that moment, I suppose this is so important to understand this, that you'd worked on yourself, period. I mean, 8, 9 years, whatever I think you said. But my point here is that most of us, meager human individuals, would have thought, oh, I'm going to go blind and my eye's hurting. The eye was obviously hurting, but you made a conscious understanding that immediately you realized that you had two. And it was the gratitude that came.
Absolutely, yeah.
Wow. I mean, that's really, really beautiful to hear. Please, Karen.
And that's what it was. I mean, you know, we was, you know, my first thing was really, because everything I do is design based, it's visual. You know, at the point I was also on a polo team playing, you know, riding horses and playing polo, and you know, all these thoughts started coming out. Oh my God, can I ride a horse again? Can I go back to work? But this is all post. But at the same time, I couldn't help but laugh, because we have two eyes, and you know, I haven't lost both.
That's
and
true.
we just carry on, you know. So yeah,
So did this scenario, firstly, amazing that your eyes okay and good and well today. I don't think you recognized it, but you know, when you spoke about your eyes, you actually went out of focus. So it's really, really amazing how the energy works in these sort of fields where you moved your, and it went out of focus. When you watch this back, if anybody has been watching us live, rewind back and just see, and you'll see when he said about it hit my eye, everything goes out of focus and blur and comes split back in. I mean, how spooky is that for the Empowerment Show? Just a question to yourself now. Logically, that would have taken you out of work. That would have taken you from coming out of flow to an extent. Now, were you actually working at the time? Were you working with any company, or was it your own entrepreneurial journey at that time?
At that point, it happened. I was probably at the peak of any designer's career. You know, any dream job if you're in the world of design as a creative director in a big agency, working on big campaigns, and it happened right in the middle of it. You know, I can call it that. It's life saying, "Hey, put the brakes on. You need to take a break because you haven't." But for the first time, I wasn't working for at least a couple of months. I was bedbound in the sense that I had to lay flat.
Wow.
I couldn't watch TV. I couldn't do much except listen. And I enjoy listening. I listen to podcasts. I listen to motivational things. I listen to spiritual teachers, all kinds of schools of thought, just to kind of always gain that extra wisdom and insight. And it was only, you know, being there over 2 months, lying down,
investing in yourself.
Listening, investing in myself, listening to myself, being with myself, going deeper into meditation practice, because to get through the pain, I had to go deeper into a state where I couldn't feel pain anymore, just through meditation practices I have. And, you know, in that whole journey, you know, I didn't look like this. I didn't used to look like this. I had a trim beard, and, you know, I wear hats and caps and beanies, and, you know, this whole identity of, you know, if we're going back to identity, because of being a child and having this kind of, you know, not that I was bullied severely that, you know, it put me off my identity. I just didn't resonate with my identity, from which the faith has given. And I just didn't understand it. I think that was the key thing.
That's a poignant point there. It's not necessarily the faith. It was just the fact that I suppose there was a generation of this is how you do it, and this is the religion, this is how you live, and this is how you do it, and this you wear a turban and you keep your hair, but without actually fully understanding it. And I think that's a really powerful point that you've shared there. And then you said you worked on yourself and you started to.
Yeah, and I as I lay there, as I said, my beard was trimmed, and all of a sudden it was growing because I didn't have anywhere to go. And this is actually a really great time in history where the whole beard trend was actually just starting. I didn't know about it then, but my beard started growing, and the first thought I had in my mind, and again, there was no like, I wasn't doing this for anyone like my parents or anything. It was just a thing that I was just letting happen. You know, my beard was growing, and I was thinking, oh, will my wife like this look? You know, not because I was turning religious or becoming anything else than me. And then I was like, no, I just like it growing at the moment. And
It's
then I
just
heard,
who I am.
yeah, and it felt true. It felt like my true self was happening. And these words were really inspired by something I heard. And I think I've had a discussion with you in the past about this, is that
Yes.
I heard a wise man, a very famous wise man, actually wasn't so famous then, but he
Yeah.
is now. And
We can mention his name, it's no problem. His
we
name
can,
is
yeah, okay,
Sadhguru.
Sadhguru, yeah,
Yeah.
Sadhguru Jaggi Vasudev. And I heard a lecture of his, and everything he says so profound and so
Truly. And
relatable. It's so
comical as well. It's
yeah, so
profound,
comical.
comical and deep spiritual. It makes you laugh and it's spiritual.
And it's relative, and and that's when I'm saying I'm listening to different people, I'm literally listening to all different people from all over the globe, from all different schools of thought. And he just said this one simple line about someone asked him, Sadhguru, why do spiritual people have long beards and long hair? And he simply said to the person who replied to the audience member, he said, why do people why do you take yours off? Why do you shave your beard? And although it sounds so simple, for me, it really it touched a chord, in the sense that, who am I always trying to please? And it really made me go in to the ego aspect of always trying to be someone for someone else, always trying to look a certain way, maybe not wear my turban because I want to fit in to something else, fit into a society where we're taught that you have to look a certain way, you have to be a certain way. And when the words really went straight to my soul, I was like, this is so obvious and I know this, but it feels right to just be me. And being me was just letting and embracing just my hair all over my head and my face.
This is so significant, so powerful. I really thank you for bringing this into this interview, Chaz, because we spend, or should I say, unless a person's switched on, and this is what we're talking about, the significant moment, we're talking about the time when something so profound happens that defines you as an individual. And of course, we mentioned the fact that Sadhguru actually said, he had that conversation when somebody was saying to him, what exactly is it that why do you keep your hair? What is it all about? And he had something along the lines of saying, well, I suppose you could say, I would like probably to know why you cut your hair, because I'm just being, right? In fact, why don't you go and ask the person who actually cuts your hair for you? What about asking him why he cuts your hair? But for yourself, it was, what's really powerful is the fact that the audience listening tonight, they're following the realization that this isn't about being right or wrong. It's about what suits you. And you went from becoming somebody for somebody else to actually truly finding that inner identity, which is what you were just sharing a moment ago. So this helped you with you obviously weren't an unconfident and inconfident individual. So what really changed within you after you found this new resonance with oneself?
I mean, my confidence levels definitely went up 100%. And that wasn't because I embraced a new identity. It felt like a new me. It felt like a real me. I have my challenges with some people thinking, I'm going down one path and have their own concerns, but that was their own insecurities. And for the first time, I was rocking it. I felt like I could still be trendy and I could still wear a turban and I could put accessories in it and I could wear colors and I could just be me, and if someone had a problem with it, that's their problem because I'm just being me. And I didn't want to do the whole I want to stand out thing, let me look a certain way to stand out. I was just being
Showing
who
up.
I want to be. I want to represent.
And do you know what? This actually got you noticed in a different way. I know you just didn't want to get noticed, but you just showed up as yourself. Now, there's the Singh Project that was globally accepted and acclaimed by Amit and Naroop, from my memory. And obviously they've taken it to another level as well. But I saw your image in that book when I saw it in the book, but I saw it online some time ago with yourself and your dad as well, involved in it. Again, the flyers don't disappear. They're always everywhere, aren't they? Uncle G, Sasikal, and hello to yourself as well. But my question to yourself is that there was a scene, there's a time I remember specifically you shared with me once, and apologies, we haven't spoken about this, but it was like you hadn't realized the success of the Singh Project until you'd gone to India with yourself and your mum, and you talk about Chandigarh or somewhere you came out, and all of a sudden mum said, "Oi, you're there. You're on the billboard." Is that right? So just...
Yeah, and in shop, shop fronts, there are pictures of me. I've had photos from Australia. There's pictures of me in restaurants there, in like these really, classy joints, not like
Wow.
the shabby back street places. But yeah, it was really interesting. I think the image became very iconic. I got a lot of emails and messages via social media about, and some were very touching, to be honest, and all of them very positive in the sense that I had messages about young children, young adults saying, "Oh, I was just about to cut my hair and now I'm going to keep my hair because of how you look."
Oh, wow.
I was like, wow, like just because of an image. I mean, there's a big responsibility when you put yourself out.
This is beautiful, but you said something earlier about identity. And I don't want to forget this point, but I'm just going to have a quick, it's just, Chaz, I told you the time will go just like that, didn't I? We are at halfway through the actual interview already. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to do a quick synopsis. If you've just joined us, we are speaking to Chaz Fliy. He is a tremendous humanitarian individual, but an individual who's created, who's amalgamated and aligned his, what we call commercial side of his life, his achievements, monetary achievements, and connected it with his inner yogi and his connection with his spiritual touch. We haven't cut on it yet. We're about to go through that in a moment. So thank you very much for joining us. If you would like to learn a little bit more about how Chaz kind of nearly lost his eye in his defining moment that we always talk about, and also how he overcame bullying and went inwards, please scrub back to the start of this particular video, the Empower Volume, episode 62, and please watch it again. It's my go now to cover it off. So welcome back, everybody, to the second half of the interview. So Chaz, just a question to yourself. How important do you think identity of self truly is?
I did an experiment, and it was only recently about going off social media. And I'm not encouraging it, and I'm not saying don't do it either. It's just, I did the experiment for myself, and I felt fantastic because I didn't feel like I had to be someone in front of a camera or have to do things for people to get who I am as an individual. But I do it for my work. I need to show people, look, you can be like this in a situation. I release videos and content to inspire people and be positive. But then I had a thought, and I thought, those who don't do it for work and who are relying to look a certain way or be a certain way or portray themselves a certain way on social media or to the world, that is sad. In the sense, not sad that you shouldn't be doing it, but sad that people need that attention and they're doing it for others. And what I realized in identity is that until you really know your true self, you won't experience the world in all its beauty because you're so fixated on what others think. You think about what others think about what you wear, how you look, what size you need to be, how big you need to be, how many pictures of the gym you're in,
Absolutely.
All the time we are literally putting ourselves out there for people to judge us, to validate how we should feel. Whereas when you go inside and you know who you are and you know how you want to feel, you can be wearing robes, you can look how you want, and you don't need validation, and you don't get fazed by someone's comments, and and your real beauty does come out. And I know it's a very cliche thing to say when people say, oh, your inner beauty, but sometimes you need to let go of who you think you are and just connect to yourselves, and that's so beautiful when you allow that to come out.
That's so powerful. I'm just going to overhaul that, if I may. Identity being very important, and the fact that it's sad that people need the validation externally, not because they are sad, not because anything else, because of the fact that the community, or should I say the globalization of Facebook, mentioning all the social media platforms, and the principal understanding that we require external validation. And this is the key, what you're standing for. So it's how, what we call manufactured consent, by Noam Chomsky, how he talks about how the world is designed to make you feel a certain way and act a certain way by plan. So what you're touching on is so important, Chaz. I just want to take the conversation to a slightly different way, because there are individuals who've found their identity and they've turned it into an ego. Okay, so they've misinterpreted ego as being their identity. You just touched on something really, really powerful, where you were rested within yourself, balanced within yourself, and whatever you looked like just showed up. Does that make sense? So are there any understandings or key tips that we can find, or we could ask ourselves? Because I know you do deep inner work with yogis and spiritual work. I'm really glad to have you on the show. Is there something that you could share with the audience that maybe not necessarily they can go and fix themselves in 5 seconds, but at least just to start to look inwards at least?
So a tip I would say, and I guess it's a teaching which actually roots me back anytime I need it. It really is that when we think about our true identity, okay, what is the truth? The truth is something that cannot be changed, that the sun comes up and the sun goes down. That's truth. You know, the moon is there, the moon comes down, the grass grows, whether you cut it or not. The tree continues to blossom, or leaf, whether you like it or not. It's just the way the world is. Truth is truth. Your nails grow, you got to cut them. Your hair will grow, and whether you cut it or you let it grow, the truth is it's infinite. It's just prevails. You can't change what truth is. Yeah. So when we accept that all that is just going to be and continue to happen, whether you try to change it or not, that's real truth. And when we realize that we're true in our nature, to be true in your nature is just to remember that, one is that things happen, your fate happens, right? We call it hukum. It's just happening. Things just happen. But when it comes to if I take it about like our true self, is that just remember that, unless you connect with yourself first, and that takes time and this takes effort, and you have to be willing to let go of old beliefs or different beliefs that haven't served you until you get used to the idea of being uncomfortable or going through the heat to actually become something shiny. Then you won't get them results. Like one real good example is that everyone wants these results, of especially like the age we live in now. Everyone wants to be spiritual. Everyone wants this lighter world. Everyone wants to follow the law of attraction and everything to work with abundance all the time. But the difference is that unless you work on yourself, it's not going to happen. It's like when you get nickel and copper, bring it together through heat, it becomes brass. Now, once that brass is together, it can never come apart. But people aren't willing to go through the heat. And when I mean heat, go through the work. And then once you've got there, it can't come apart because you become so connected to yourself. And that's all it is you need to connect to yourself. Instead of living outside, you need to look within. Because a lot of it, we're always looking out at what others are doing and how I can be.
Yeah. So in context, that was a beautiful rendition of conversation, how to look inwards and what's the purpose behind it. How have you used your mission, your vision, and actually, because I know you want to create this change and ignite individuals to try and find themselves, but in your own journey, you're not just being a pompous individual who's telling people how to fix things when they haven't fixed it themselves. You're actually really working on yourself, which you've just shown. So I know that you also think about art therapy, and I also understand that you understand about mental illnesses and stuff. So this is about the principle. Now, there was a project that we both worked on together, which I was very humbled to be the chair and assistant of the board. Color and Culture as an organization. The book has and I wanted to congratulate you, it's just released, and it's called the Seekbook, and it's volume 1, if I'm correct. Can you tell me a little bit more about what it is as a concept, and then how it kind of evolved with so much amazing love that it attended to through Kickstarter and stuff?
So the project started 4 years ago, actually. It started 4 years ago, and this is a snapshot summary. It started 4 years ago, and this happened. This idea came from when I was in Africa on my, originally 6 years ago, the idea was stemmed. 4 years is when I started work on it. So 6 years ago, I was on honeymoon in Africa, backpacking with my wife, and we came to an orphanage, and we had the honor and the privilege to actually teach in one of the schools. And at the end of the day, they have this little moment where, gifts are coming, or, those who sponsor some of the
Donations,
orphans, they get the gifts, and they were receiving simple books or coloring pencils or pens, and they were ecstatic, and at that moment I realized, actually, what we have in our lives is more than what we need, and look at how much joy they get from these simple things. Not simple to them, but simple to us, because we take it for granted. 2 years on, 4 years ago, there became a trend of adult coloring books, and I was looking for a particular book to kind of connect to, but I couldn't connect to anything that was really in the market, something that connected, whether it be from a spiritual perspective or from an art perspective, that I felt connected to, even from a faith perspective. And I started illustrating and sketching some concepts, and I thought, maybe one day I might be able to make an adult coloring book for the Sikhs and many different cultures. And so I started these pieces of art, and I worked with an illustrator to really refine them. I self-funded it, and after a period of time, I parked the project, and
maybe another day.
Yeah, maybe another day. Have I really got to do this right now? Because I've got other things. When you're entrepreneur, you're doing so many other things.
And also, didn't something like, is this really a great enough, good enough concept? Will it be received well? Or is it just me? I just want to do it. One of those sort of things.
It really was that. And then comes 2020, the great lockdown. I caught up with my work, caught up with my projects, and I was just serving. And at the back of my mind, I've always had, I have to finish this project. I can't keep it closed. Open. I need to just finish this, and I need to just, see how far I can take it. But at
least give it the respect it deserves.
Yes, absolutely. And in that time, I reevaluated what actually the world needs, what people need, what I would like at a time like this. And with mental health on the rise, generally, I'm not going to quote any figures, but it is rising daily, yearly. And, that's why you're hearing so much about mental health now, because people are becoming more aware of it. They're understanding what mental health is, opposed to thinking it was someone else's problem. It's actually something we all have, and that we can deal with, whether it be stress, whether it be, any kind of upset, or anything that you're not comfortable with your life. That's a sign of mental health. And what I really wanted to do is say, hey, look, I've got this project, but how can I reach more people, and how can I make this more of a collaboration project where it becomes more meaningful? And not only do I get more artists involved to help them showcase their work, how can I get more people from the community to get involved, whether they be writers and authors and scholars to get involved, and and maybe put some context next to the illustration pieces from a mindfulness perspective, not from just, this is a illustration of a horse or a hawk, for example. What is the significance of this?
You see, what you just shared there is something really powerful, because the book that you've created, or that we've created, the Seekbook, is a medium, isn't it, of actually reflecting upon self as well. That's why it's called the adult coloring book. So when you're coloring, there seems to be just you. There's something primal about it, the fact that it's just you, the paper, the color, and your expression, and your focus in the movements of your hand, which actually just slows the mind down and brings you to a centered self. And that's when we had this discussion before, that's what you used to share, that this is the focus, why I want people to just have that time with themselves for a moment. And I think you hit the nail on the head with COVID and this current crisis we're having in 2020. Mental health has gone up 23% actually in the UK. And it's drastic, and it's devastating to understand how painful it is to see people go through such deep pain, mental strain and stress. Now, this book we know will help people through art therapy for spending their own time. But what I noticed was, you just said there, is that there's more than just the book. It's the history. It's a story. There's a narrative running through the whole thing. This has become a collaborative, as you said. We've had the Singh twins. We've had so many Vic Gainth. We've had so many Kirpa and a number of other people who are singing. And you've also had Satpal Singh, if I'm correct, actually assisting with the Sikh scriptures. Is that right?
Absolutely. And I think this was an important part, because I'd had these conversations in the past with several of the artists and the writers, but it was a one day this project might happen kind of situation. But when I was thinking about, look, this isn't just a coloring book. I mean, this is an adult coloring book. You know, you take your time in it. You want to learn from it, and it's an art therapy collection. So it's a series of books that we want to also teach, not just someone who's from the faith, but the world. We want people to look into a certain religion or a faith and say, hey, wow, I didn't know about that. Or, you know, they learn something new, and, you know, and our own people might even learn something new, you know.
Most definitely.
Absolutely. And when I got Satpal, he's the founder of an big organization who teaches mindfulness and, you know, meditation techniques in a unique way, but linked to the religion of Sikhism. And I wanted that perspective. So it was very important that we just didn't get any writer or any content writer to add to the project. It had to be the right tone, it had to come from the right direction.
Yes,
so,
yes.
you know, and you know, God willingly, everything just kind of merged together. It just came together because you know, the same as the same happened with yourself. Like, you know, I introduced the project to you, and you loved it straight away. And with your guidance, it's been, you know, a massive success, because, you know, we started from Kickstarter, and now, you know, we're selling books daily. And one thing that is massively important to understand, why I mentioned that story about my visit to Uganda, was that with every book that was going to be sold, I wanted to give a book back to a lesser privileged child. And whatever area I was working in, so this is in the region of Punjab, this is the home for the Sikhs, I wanted to be able to give, you know, books back to communities, to schools, where they don't have these privileges to have coloring pencils or pens, and let them write their own journey, let them color in, let them explore their own creativity. Yeah, so that was a real key part of, so every book that is sold, we make sure that we're going to be giving back, as well as adults learning all about art therapy and mindfulness.
This is the true essence. Sorry to disturb you there, but this is the true essence of who you are as an individual, the multifaceted person you are. Is why I wanted you on the show. That you've combined creativity, and then you've also taken art, which is an expression of creativity, creative thought, creative expression, and then meld it together with a business model that will not only help the individual with the actual product through this self-therapy, but also is going to be a gift to a third person. And for that, I think it's been a tremendous journey with yourself working on that level. It's also, if I'm correct, it's the first volume, and there will be Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, and things of faith that will be also incorporated over the years to come. And I'll be really looking forward to that. There are other aspects of your life, if you don't mind. I also know you have a yogi outlook to life, and you're a qualified yogi as well, and you share spiritualism and belief systems, and allow people to touch inwards. Could you tell us a little bit about that for maybe 2-3 minutes, just to share what are you up to today, if anybody wants to get hold of you, kind of thing.
So, for example, Coloring Culture, I think, was the company that brought everything that I do in my life, because without going into the whole identity thing again, you know, I did yoga, I was a DJ, I'm a creative, I have all these I'm an entrepreneur, I have a lot of hands in a lot of pies, and
successfully, mind you. Successfully, mind you. Yeah.
And Coloring Culture combined all of it, you know, teaching about mindfulness and meditation and art and therapy and mindset. So what I do today is, you know, as you mentioned, Suki, I speak at corporate events. Well, I will be speaking back at corporate events. But you know, I go in there and I talk about the creative self, and I teach mindfulness to creative industries. So when I'm speaking at Apple, we're speaking about how to become more creative by just connecting to yourself. And you know, there's three principles, the three parts, which I feel that when you get these down and you really work on them, you can create your life how you want it to be. And it's never a chasing thing. It's not that dream, when I have this life, this happiness will come. It's not that. It's that when you work on your spiritual body, whether you're, you know, the flexibility is how flexible you are in the mind, you know, the strength that you have, the core strength, when you can work on your physical body, and whether that be from a nutrition perspective as well, that only benefit you, benefit you, and it'll give you the energy that you need. You know, you need the mental body to be in check, that mindset. Without the mindset, you can't even get anywhere in the first place. If you, you know, so you need that, not just a positive mindset. You need to know your own beliefs. You need to know who you are. You need to know what you want, what your purpose is, what are you driven by. And then it's that spiritual body, and not to say any of them are more important than any other, but that spiritual part is the who am I aspect. You know, what is it about me? You know, who am I? What can I do? And that self-connection, connecting to the self. And this is what I now teach in a lot of my courses and membership programs.
So with those three principles that you just shared, and thank you very much for doing that, because it's really quite, I think it's very life-changing myself as well. So a question to yourself, how, if somebody wanted to reach out to you, how would we get hold of you?
Many people connect the old-fashioned way through Instagram. You know,
old-fashioned way. I love that one. Old-fashioned way, Instagram. No, funny days are like me. That's new.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I mean, you can connect with me in any way that you want, but I think a lot of people reach out via Instagram, and that is at Chaz Fliy, Fly with an I, F-L-I-Y.
F-L-I-Y. F-L-I-Y. Yeah, Chaz Fliy. Yeah.
Alternatively, you can go to the website, and it's got all the links that you need to YouTube channels, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and that's chazfliy.com.
Chazfliy.com. Yeah, great. Or if they would like to buy a book, I'm humbly and unapologetically happy to promote it. It's coloringculture.com/shop. So you can just purchase whichever you would like as well. That's wonderful to hear. We've come to a position, Chaz, where in this particular interview, first things first, I can't believe we've covered so much. And you know what, it's just wonderful to hear you speak as always. You're a natural, as you know. In this particular time, we start to talk a little bit about your actual journey in this world. And I kind of like the Empower Hour is about creating empowerment for the generations. We have young people from 11 years onwards listening to this show. And what I wanted to double check with yourself was just to find out, if I gave you a sentence with reference to what we call the epitaph moment, and I know as a Sikh, you don't believe in that, you're into cremation, etc. But if there was such a thing as a plaque for your header, for your tombstone, and if it read something in a very positive way, this is very honest and deep in conversation with all of our tribe. If it was to say, here lies Chaz Fliy, or alternatively, you know, Jaran Blahe, who? Would you complete that sentence for us? Here lies Chaz Fliy, who, what? What did you achieve? What was your legacy? What will you leave on this planet so that everybody can hear tonight?
I would like to think that it would go along the lines of Chaz Fliy, Jaran Fliy, the man who inspired all that he met and helped connect them to their true self and their creative self, to find their own purpose.
So hang on a second. Chaz Fliy, here lies Chaz Fliy, the man who enabled everybody he met to connect with themselves to find their true purpose. Is that right?
Possibly.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Just repeat it for yourself again. Let's just repeat it so everybody here can really feel where you're coming from. And then I'd like to know why.
Chaz Fliy, the man who inspired all that he met to connect with their true self and to live with purpose.
Love it. And then what does that mean to you?
I think it believes. And this is for me. I think if anyone's thinking of doing anything, just do it. And there's no limit apart from the limit that you have within your mind, and many people know that phrase, but it's true.
Yeah.
You give, serve. There's no race in life. There's no finish line. Just give all that you are to life. To others. Serve others. Help yourself as well. But understand your purpose, and your purpose can take years to find. But the more you go in, and the more you find about yourself, that's when you really start to learn about life and who you are, and that's kind of purpose.
That's brilliant. Lovely to hear that. And Chaz, I see you as a younger brother. I've known each other for, I can't believe to say that it's near on a decade. Yeah, can you believe that it's taken us this period of time to work through, to even work on a project together. But it's really humbling to see you and have you here on the show as well. And at this particular point, I want to understand: is there a wisdom quote or something that you can leave that really kind of like, those down out moments when you're having a hard time, it's an uphill struggle, life is just happening to you, things aren't necessarily going your way or what you perceived as your way, because we never truly really have that handle on it. Is there anything that you dig deep with, or that you could just share with the audience tonight, the Inspired Tribe, and for them to be able to pick up and say, wow, that's how I live my life, and that's how I'm going to live, that's how I see going forward? Is there any wisdom quote that works for you?
Yes, Suki, there is. I have a mantra, and I say it to myself and I say it to others: be the answer, not the question.
Wow, that is deep. Hang on a second. So the question's the stimulus, but be the answer, the solution to it, and not the question. I love it. That's so powerful. Can I ask you a question then? How does it help you? Because, I'm sorry, mate, I'm putting all this stuff onto you without even contemplating it through, but this is what the power of the Empower Hour is about, being really open and honest with each other. What does it mean to you?
It can be from the littlest things, like something doesn't go your way. Sometimes you can't change things, but what can you do in that moment, apart from complaining or blaming someone else? Just go and do what needs to be done. Be the fixer, go do it. And you being the answer is that anything is possible. It's only these limitations we keep on putting to stop ourselves from getting anywhere. And that's where these questions come in. Before we want to do anything, we're already asking about a million questions. But there, in a moment, you can actually just change your state to be from sad, from happy. It doesn't really take much. Or, if there's a problem that you've just faced, sometimes it's not as bad as you think it is. Just find the solution and everything else works out. Problems aren't as big as people think they are. It's just it's a belief. And, depending on how you want to see the life, it's depending on how you're going to live it.
Chaz, that's wonderful. The solution, the answer, not the problem or the question, just be the solution within yourself. It's beautifully said. Chaz, this evening it's been, all of our audience around the world has actually listened, and on the podcast as well, has listened and heard your voice and your voice of wisdom. Thank you very much for coming on to the Empower Hour show, the live series that we throw on YouTube. I just want to, on behalf of the audience and everybody else who listens to you and your followers, because I know you've got a great following as well, I want to say thank you very much, Chaz, for being here.
Thank you, Suki. I know we've only got a minute left, but I just got to say thank you for being there throughout the decade, and in more recent on this Colour and Culture project. Obviously, without you, half of it couldn't have been done. So, everyone contributes in such a great way, and everyone has a piece where, they work best, and you've really given everything that you could, and I'm really grateful for that. And also being on the show, and I hope people take probably one bit of wisdom or nugget or something that can help them. I really do.
Thank you, Chaz, and thank you very much for your humility in respecting my journey with you in Colour and Culture as the chair. But I just want to share, it's been a wonderful inspiration having you on the show, and I hope everybody's enjoyed it in the same way as we have ourselves. This is the Empower Hours show. This was episode 62 with the Chaz Fliy, the man, the creator, the individual who's achieved so much in his life and still retained his humility, identity. And if you really want to rewind back, just rewind back to the start of this if you're watching this live, and thoroughly enjoy the nuggets, the pearls of wisdom that have been shared with this. And every single Wednesday, every single Tuesday between 7 and 8. Now that you can see it's live, can't you? Every single Tuesday evening between 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. to see us every week, and another episode next week on 63. Thank you very much, Chaz, and thank you very much to the audience, and thank you very much to the Inspired Tribe and Salam Radio.